Greetings again everyone. A couple of weeks ago the lens you see before you unexpectedly turned up on my front door. Viltrox have sent me a copy of the new Fujifilm X mount version of their tiny 28mm f4.5 chip pancake lens, so I thought, why not test it out? When I last looked at one over on Sony E-mount, I mostly did a full frame test, so today I'm going to start completely from scratch and test it all over again on my aps-c Fujifilm X-T3 camera instead. Not only is the lens unbelievably tiny, and not only does it feature autofocus and a useful focal length, but its price comes in at under $100 or about £90 here in the UK, making it potentially a serious bargain and a fun piece of kit. But only if it's any good, of course. I'd like to thank Viltrox for sending me one of these for testing, but as usual, this is a totally independent review. Just look at the tiny thing. It really is legitimately impressive what Viltrox have done here. It's made of a mixture of plastic and metal and feels nice and tough, although it's not weather sealed. Its only external control is the slider for the lens cover here, although in the rear they managed to fit in a USB-C port for firmware updates. The lens does not feature manual focus at all, only autofocus. The rear glass element is pretty big here, although there's a bit of a design flaw. When facing downwards, it collapses down under its own weight beneath the point of the lens mount, which means that if you were to put this lens down on a hard surface without its rear cap, that glass element could easily get scratched. So don't do that, look after the rear cap, don't lose it. The lens's autofocus motor worked for me just okay. It works quickly and quietly, but on my Fujifilm X-T3 camera it would miss focus about 6 or 7% of the time though, sometimes even being a little stubborn, but largely it does work satisfactorily. The lens doesn't come with a hood or front lens cap, well, it doesn't need one, and it's not image stabilized as you might imagine. It also does not feature a front filter thread, which is a slight shame. Overall though, this lens is as tiny as it is simple. Just the fact that it works with autofocus at such a small size is legitimately impressive, although like I said, be very careful putting it down on a hard surface without its rear cap on. Okay then, image quality, and as you can guess by now, I'll be testing it on my 26MP Fujifilm X-T3 camera. In-camera corrections are turned on for this test. Image quality in the middle is fairly sharp, not razor sharp, but contrast is good and we don't see any purple fringing. Corner image quality is a little softer, but still holding itself together just about, and contrast remains good here too. You can't adjust the lens's aperture, so that is literally it. The lens's image quality is good enough here for a little $100 pancake optic. Other pancake lenses like Fujifilm's own 27mm f2.8 will perform a lot better, but they cost literally about 3 times as much money, so go figure. Let's bypass Fujifilm's automatic corrections by shooting in RAW and editing in third-party software in order to take a look at distortion and vignetting. The lens projects a little pincushion distortion here, but not much. Despite it being a full-frame lens, we do actually still see some vignetting. You might want to brighten your image corners a little if you're shooting in RAW. The lens is not able to focus super closely to your subject here, but simply by virtue of shooting on an aps-c camera, your magnification isn't too bad. The good news is that close-up image quality doesn't really seem to be any worse than it was at normal distances. Next, work against bright lights. Interesting things happen here. Unfortunately, bright lights cause quite a huge glare, which damages your contrast a lot. Viltrox have made the interesting decision to add a physical mask to the front optic of the lens, which brings you 8-point sun stars. A cool idea for sure, but you have to be in just the right position for that to work properly. Here is that sun star in my coma test picture. It's there and it's cool, but it's spoiled by glaring from that source of bright light. Anyway, when it comes to coma smearing, the good news is that there's barely anything to see here. Finally, bokeh. It's hard to get out of focus backgrounds with this lens, especially when shooting on aps-c, but when you do, they look averagely soft here, no real problems to report. Overall, the lens's tiny size and decent enough sharpness, not to mention its very low price, offsets its rather ugly issues with flaring, in my opinion. The lens is fun to use and not bad value, if you're happy to shoot only at f4.5, that is, of course. For its low price, on Fujifilm X, the lens still comes recommended. Thanks for watching everyone, I hope you found that interesting, and if you find these lens reviews helpful and you watch them often, then check out my Patreon page in the description below to see special exclusive content and support the channel. God bless everyone.